Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. All right, thanks for downloading the second episode of the ThunderCast this week. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Well, as long as Twitter is still around, according to what may or may not be happening with that platform. But for the time being, you can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. Also, we are on Facebook, and now more so than ever, please head over to the ThunderCast YouTube page. Give that a like so that you don't miss any of that content. And just for, normal gigs, also head on over to the ThunderCast YouTube channel. Give us a subscription there. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. We don't really have much content there yet, but as Twitter may or may not be devolving from existence, we got to go somewhere. So we sure would appreciate all of our followers migrating over to those other platforms to keep abreast of all the awesomeness that we try to bring each and every week. So earlier in the week, we did the 5 things every herd fan needs to know, and we recapped an unbelievably awesome 75-week weekend that saw me make the trip up to Huntington and have a lot of fun with some old friends and new. But we've got another game on the schedule, so we're going to get to that. We're going to take it around the herd, especially since some cool stuff has happened in the postseason that allowed us to include it in that segment. So we're going to get into all that. But for right now, let's get a quick word from our sponsors at 304carwreck.com. If you've been hurt in a wreck, visit 304carwreck.com on the web or on Facebook. You can't stop a bad driver from crashing into you and making you a victim. But when you're hurt and you try to deal with the insurance companies alone, you set yourself up to be a victim again. Don't be a victim twice. Jason and Matt can't protect you from bad drivers, but they can protect you from the insurance companies. Find them at 304carwreck.com. Russ, it is a exciting time around herd athletics. We're into SBC tournaments. Some cases we're into NCAA tournaments, and we're going to talk about all that. But first, we've got a big game on the gridiron this weekend. Marshall's traveling down to Georgia to play a old Southern Conference rival, Georgia Southern, who currently sits at 5-5 on the season, 2-4 in conference. And this is a big one, right? So I've got some of the generalistics that we normally talk about, but look, since we normally do all this in one episode, and we've had conversation during that. This is kind of a weird scenario, and I don't want to just rip off, 10 minutes worth of stats and all that kind of stuff without talking to you for a second. So a little bit of a shakeup to the format this weekend. Just initial thoughts before we get into anything about the Georgia Southern game. What's kind of on the line for you? If you want to get into a little bit of what the week was like, some things we saw, any things, heck, there was some news that actually broke today that we can talk about to give like a bonus thing for news late breaking in the week. So what about the last couple of days here from a herd standpoint?
Well, some things that broke today, we had Grant Traylor announced to be the new Director of Communications, something like that is his title. Kind of taking over for Chuck McGill. I know there's been a little bit of restructuring and everything, so it won't be exactly what Chuck was doing. There will be some different things that Grant will be doing. Grant is no stranger to herd fans. He's been covering Marshall for quite a while. Been at the Herald Dispatch and other like companies for the last 15 years. Was that what you were talking about?
Yeah, that was the major one. As you're talking there, I'm just looking up the article, and Grant's been officially titled the Associate Athletic Director of Communications. And yeah, if you've been following herd athletics for any amount of time, you know who Grant is. Grant does a great job. And of course, we are looking forward to building a new and different type of relationship with with Grant as he moves into an official capacity within the Marshall Athletic Department, and we continue to do what we like to do. So congratulations to Grant. This is a excellent opportunity. I'm sure he's pumped for it. And hey, man, I'm ready for the Grant Trailer era of communications, I guess.
Yeah. About this game, I've it's kind of been a roller coaster season for us after the FCS start. Just blew that team out of the water and then went up to Notre Dame and won convincingly. Better team, and the outlook of the season looked different. And then lost to Bowling Green, lost to Troy, started having offensive woes, and then it was like every other week you would either pick up a win or get a loss, and we were at 4-4. Um, things looked a lot different. Now we're 6-4, and I think it's highly more likely that we finish 8-4 than we would 6-6. No matter what it is, almost 100% we're going bowling. I have to feel like too, just for the cherry on the top, we'll pick up at least one more victory. But I have us winning both right now as it is. So that's kind of the outlook going into this. Is we need to finish the season. We need to finish on what we've done the last few weeks, especially last week having a complete game for the first time in a while. But that's where I'm at right now going into this from the 10,000 feet view.
Yeah, the bird's eye view. Look, if a couple of weeks ago, personally, I felt like Marshall was kind of licking their wounds a little bit, and it was hard for me to envision where the rest of these needed wins were going to come from. And I have said so in an episode. And thankfully, the herd started figuring some things out as Cam Fancher came into the starting role, and we took a few early bumps, but he was still kind of figuring it out. And you said in the recap that, hey, he's 3-1 as a starter. Let's not forget that.
Mm-hmm.
So even though these developmental bumps are still popping up, and they will continue to pop up for a while, we're 3-1 in that stretch, and that's really all that matters. It doesn't matter how you get the win; it matters that you get the win.
And in that one loss, he threw for 320 yards. So
Yeah,
it wasn't like he threw 5 picks and he was the reason we lost.
yeah, we can't pin that one on him. I mean, we spotted Coastal Carolina 21 points and just weren't able to play our type of ball game. We had to try to figure it out on the fly, and we just couldn't figure it out enough to come back fully and try to get that game. But if not for that first quarter, I feel great that Cam would be 4-0 as a starter, and we would already have cemented bowl eligibility with having 7 wins at this point. So this one all but guarantee. I mean, it does guarantee. We're already all but guaranteed a bowl game with 6 wins, but with 7, it's a guarantee. You're going to go bowling. And if you pick up that 8th win, the echelon of bowl, while a lot of them get lumped together in that early bowl season, like mid-December, right around Christmas time, there's a lot of bowl games get played. A lot of Sun Belt conference game, or a lot of Sun Belt bowl games are getting played, Conference USA bowl games, MAC games, that type of thing. So there's not really a tier of bowl game that you're going to move up to really in a big way by going from 6 to 8 wins, but it sure as hell looks a hell of a lot better on a record, being 8-4 than 6-6, especially at some of the beatings. I don't want to say beatings, some of the losses that we took and how we took those losses early in the season. We're in a pretty good position.
Now, we've discussed this several times, weeks in a row, even. But for anyone that is tuning into this for the first time before they've heard the explanation, we generally have to win. Any FBS team has to win 6 games to be bowl eligible. One of those can be to an FCS opponent. We have 6 wins right now. 2 of those are against an FCS opponent. Us and App State had each other scheduled for an out-of-conference game. With the sudden move to the Sun Belt, that left both of us in a situation most schedules are made 3 years, 3 to 4 years in advance. That left both of us in a unique situation where we had to basically pick up nothing but FCS opponents to replace. So we were both in the same situation. Both of us filed the waiver. I don't know that there's anything that I could point to a source that says, yes, this 100% has been granted. But from everything that I have heard from insiders and outsiders, it has been granted. ESPN has all but said, yes, we'll be anyone that has 6 victories, no matter who they are against, anyone that has 6 victories will be playing in bowls this year.
Yeah.
So it is almost guaranteed that we'll go. Uh, Putting 2 more wins on would be very ideal for better bowl selection, considering there is no chance we'll be playing in the conference championship game to get a 9th win or to further pad that resume with a conference championship. So we do still want to win both of these games. No one wants to limp into a bowl game anyway. So yeah, let's get it done. Win these last 2, go 8-4, leave no doubt.
Yeah, leave no doubt was a potential of 9-win season. And if you would have asked me a month ago if that looked like even a slight possibility, I would have been like, no. But here we are, and the herd has turned a little bit of a corner. Something we didn't touch on in the App State recap is, if you'll remember in the preview, I said that I felt like that game against App State was a measuring stick game for Marshall, and they played one of their most complete team games in that game and proved that they were the better team against a Sun Belt top tier team. No matter how they're doing this year, for the past however many years, they've been a perennial 9, 10, 11 win team. They're a good team. And to go in, host App State in a renewed rivalry and get that win, it proves, I think, Marshall has turned a little bit of a corner, and we can start to maybe go upward a little bit quicker than we had all thought initially. But look, you can't get to 8 wins or 9 wins until you get to 7. And that's where we are currently. Georgia Southern's on the slate. We're heading down to Paulson. We're going to make what I'm calling the Peachtree Road Swing, or the Peach State Road Swing. We're going to have Georgia State at home. So we're going to have to fight through the state of Georgia to close out the season. But this is another one of those old Southern Conference rival type teams, 7th all-time meeting between the Herd and Georgia Southern. This will be the first one since 1996, that historic 15-0 season for the Herd that saw them win the 1AA national title. Herd is currently 4-2 all-time against Georgia Southern. And we mentioned it just now, a win in this one guarantees a bowl game for the Herd. It's all but guaranteed now. Now, look, if you look at this from a wins and losses standpoint, they're 5-5. We're one better in that win column, but there's still several similarities between these two teams. Both of us have wins over James Madison and Old Dominion. Both of us have losses to Coastal Carolina and Louisiana. After Georgia Southern plays the Herd, they're going to have to close out with App State. So another measuring stick type game for them. What do we know basically about Georgia Southern? Well, they move the ball pretty well through the air, to the tune of the 5th best passing offense in the country in terms of yards, passing yards per game. Of course, that means them number 1 in the Sun Belt Conference, 334 yards per game on average for Georgia Southern. The Herd, though, 28th best pass defense in the nation at 194 yards per game. So it's kind of strength on strength here. From a bird's eye view, just of this game now, what do you see? I know we'll do matchups. We'll talk about some games within the game here in a little bit, but Herd's going on the road with an opportunity to win 3 in a row for the first time. Well, for the second time this season, but this time we got some real momentum, right? Some real momentum.
Momentum is definitely in our court, and it's not for Georgia Southern. You know, they have lost the last 2, if I remember correctly. They're trending in the wrong direction, and in some of the stats, they're trending in the wrong direction. I'm going to get to that a little bit later on. We have the momentum too in having a redshirt freshman who now has 4 games under his belt, playing full starting quarterback, playing the whole game. And we have seen growth. We've seen the passing game growth. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about later that will look like, you know, it's a matchup deficiency for us. When you look at the last 4 games, it's a totally different season the way we've been passing the ball, with one anomaly thrown in there. But even at that, with the yards not being in that one game, we're throwing over the middle. We're throwing over the top. We are not giving up as many sacks because we have someone that is not only moving out of the pocket, but he's not just turning to run. A lot of times he's escaping those sacks, giving himself time. He's still looking up down the field, either throwing it away or throwing it for a long gain or throwing an incompletion. No matter what, he's not taking a sack immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So things have changed quite a bit. We still have a defense that I feel like is getting better every week. And they are struggling now, it looks like. They're giving up a lot of points. Georgia Southern is. This could be from, again, that upper view. We have the momentum coming in, and we're favored in this game. So,
Yep.
On the road, I think we come out with a victory, and we'll get in a little bit deeper on why I think that in a minute.
Yeah, it's if you're a Herd fan, you're gonna really like how this one matches up for our offense versus their defense. And I've got some. I'm sure we have some of the same similar stats and some of those even they're not really advanced stats, but things you've got to talk about, which I'm sure, even though we don't talk about what we're going to say beforehand, by the way, guys, this is all just organic conversation. So a lot of times we will have some of the similar stats, but I think that's what's really great about our show.
Well, and the reason we're going to have similar stats is because stats don't lie. We
Yeah.
don't make these up. We're going in and seeing where we rank high, where we rank low, where they rank high, where they rank low.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that tough, you know. Looking at the matchups and seeing what should occur. It's not like we've got a crystal ball, and as we saw during the Louisiana game, some of the things that we keyed up on, it did not go the way that it had all year long. Things don't always pan out that way, and that's why we play the game.
Yeah,
But
trends are just trends until they're not trends anymore, right?
yeah,
Otherwise, it would just be the way. Once you did it once, well, that's what you would do every time. Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, it's not always that way. But look, one thing we do know is that this Georgia Southern offense is really, really good through the air. And it starts, of course, with the quarterback. Transfer quarterback come down from Buffalo, already 1-0 against the Herd in his career. He beat us in a bowl game a couple of years ago. Number 6, Kyle Van Tree, 6'2", 225-pound senior. 286 out of 468 on the season, 3,307 yards on the year. I like this, though. 21 touchdowns versus 13 interceptions. We've faced several quarterbacks here lately that have a really killer touchdown to interception ratio. And this one's a little more like the way I like to look at it, because this tells me that Van Treese will throw them up for grabs. And our defense, as we know, will come down with those from time to time. Might be the best stat in his favor. Only sacked 4 times on the season. So they protect the quarterback pretty well down there. A couple of running backs we've got to talk about. Number 25 running back Jalen White, 6', 215-pound junior, leads the team in carries and yards and touchdowns. So he's the one you really want to pay the most attention to. 149 carries for 771 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. That's a pretty good season. Just about as good. The yards per carry is right there. Number 4 running back Gerald Green, 5'9", 195-pound junior, just 86 carries on the season for 475 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground for him. Both those guys over 5 yards per carry on the season. A couple of wide receivers we're going to put a big spotlight on. Number 7, wide receiver Caleb Hood, the 5'10", 180-pound senior, leads the team in catches and yards. 66 catches for 753 yards on the season. Just 2 touchdowns through the air, though. Number 2, wide receiver Derwin Burgess, the 5'11", 185-pound sophomore, 58 catches, 717 yards, nipping at the heels in both of those categories. But he leads the team in in receiving touchdowns with 7. Couple of more wide receivers we're going to talk about and we'll lump them together, right? Jeremy Singleton and Amari Jones. Together, those 2 guys combined for another 83 receptions, another 991 receiving yards, and an additional 8 touchdowns on the ground. Now, this offense, I switched it up a little bit. I've been doing those last 3 game averages. So I did the last 2, but I put these numbers after the offense and then after the defense. So you mentioned it before. In their last 2, they're 0-2. Scoring just 24 points per game. And I know that's pretty good, but it's down from where they were. 398 yards gained, 318 of those pass yards, 80 average on the ground per game rush yards, just 23% on third down in those last two, 6 of 26, and averaging one turnover per game. Defensively, Georgia Southern, led by linebacker number 33, Marcus Watson Trent, the 5'11, 220-pound sophomore, 84 total tackles, 35 of those solo, half a sack, a pass defended, and a forced fumble. Then we're going to spotlight a couple of DBs. Number 12, defensive back Anthony Wilson, 5'10", 220-pound junior, 73 tackles, 42 of those solo, 1.5 sacks, 4 passes defended, 1 interception, and a forced fumble. Then number 5, defensive back Wylan Free, the 6'2", 180-pound senior, 68 tackles, 40 of those solo, and on down the stat line, just 1 fumble recovery. Impact plays for this Georgia Southern defense: 16 total team sacks, 11 total team interceptions, 5 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries. Over their last two, you thought 22 points per game or 24 points per game scored was pretty good. Well, over their last two, they're allowing 37 points per game to their opposition. 474.5 yards per game allowed, 193 of those through the air. Get this, Russ. Herd fans, perk up. 281 yards allowed per game in their last 2 games, given opposition 38% third down conversion with 11 out of 29. Now, look, that Louisiana game's a little bit of an outlier for both. Neither one of those teams were good on third down in that game, so that throws the numbers off a little bit. Just saying, not trying to throw some shade on their offense or their defense. Neither team did anything on third down in that game. So, Russ, that's a lot of stats. There's a lot of matchups we're going to talk about. So if you want to, I'm going to leave this to you now. Do you want to go into keys and mix that in, or do you want to talk matchups?
Well, I want to go to keys, but I want to highlight a couple of things for what you said there.
Okay.
And I'm not disputing what you said because he does have 13 interceptions, but a whopping 7 of them came in 2 games. That will be something we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Okay.
He still threw them, but it's not like he, throws an average of 2 a game or something like that. But when he throws them, he can throw them in bunches. So that's something to look out for. Also, Jalen White does have 771 yards on the season. He is rushing for 5.2, but he's only had 3 games above 100. Sometimes their running game just disappears, and we talked about that the last 2 games. You mentioned, they're averaging 80. So the other thing that I want to highlight, 61.1% completion percentage is not bad, but it's not elite. And the 13 interceptions is not elite. So Vantry throws for a lot of yardage, but he throws a lot of passes. This is a pass heavy, it's one of those things we talked about with App State getting 116 yards against us, but they ran it 40 times to get there.
Right. I would say this is whatever the top threshold is before you're called an air raid offense, because they must be like right there, because it's not a true air raid. They just throw the ball a hell of a lot.
Yeah. And we're going to get into some more matchups, but let's do the keys first, because during my keys, I have some matchups.
So do I. And I think we're probably going to talk some of the same here.
And then after the keys, before we get into the score prediction player of the game, I've got some other little key matchups to watch that aren't keys to the victory.
Cool. So what's the first one for you then?
First of 3. Do you have 3?
I have a 4th, but it's something we can both bounce off of.
Okay. Number 1, run wild. Georgia Southern is 129th out of 131 against the run, giving up a staggering 224.9 yards per game. Opponents have gotten a ridiculous 5.66 yards per carry against them. Fans, have we been able to run the ball a little bit this year? Yes, we have. Now, Laburn is banged up, right shoulder, especially this last game. He came out several different times. He did not run a full game. He seemed to be not hitting the hole as hard as in previous games. I feel like he was just one, we didn't need to, but two, he was a little banged up. But I could see him busting some long runs against what looks to be a porous run defense. And I also look for Fancher to be able to pick up some chunk yards with his wheels. So one thing I would look for, though, especially with the unknown of Laburn, if he's 100%, but still an 80% Laburn is better than most of the people in the Sun Belt. I look for Payne and Turner to get quite a few carries, and we may have a lot of run by committee with Fancher and 2 to 3 different running backs getting a lot of carries during this game.
I don't think it's any surprise that my number one key to victory is all in on the run, guys. We're all in on the run. This is not a game where I would slightly be angry if we don't see some, big pass numbers. We
Yeah.
might see them anyway because they know the herd can run and they know that we're deep at the running back position. They know that we have a quarterback that can take off and be gone in an instant. So you may see some of those plays that we've been clamoring for to work, maybe finally work because they're ganging up to try to slow our run game. But look, let me drive some of these cool stats home for you. Georgia Southern just this season, has allowed a 100-yard rusher in 7 of their 10 games. And the surprisingly, Louisiana and Coastal did not have a 100-yard rusher. They've allowed a 200-yard rusher. I'm sorry, 2 100-yard rushers once this season, and they've allowed a 200-yard rusher in a game twice this season, including just 2 weeks ago. They allowed 247 rushing yards to LaDamian Webb of South Alabama back on November 19th. Now, if this is the game this is the game that this herd rush attack could really shine. I mean, really shine. We thought we saw some things against Norfolk State in the opener, but the numbers don't lie. 129th or whatever you said in the country in rush defense.
129 of 131.
At this point, 10 games in the season, you've earned that ranking. This is not an outlier to where you played a triple option team in week 1 and they just lit you up. No.
Yeah.
10 games in, you've earned that defensive ranking. So this could be the second time this season that we see two guys go for 100 yards in a game. I mean, hell, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we see 3 guys go over 100 yards in it. I'm not calling for that, but this is the type of matchup to where that could occur.
We've got 2 right now, right? Norfolk State and then
I guess Cam and
Old Dominion. I mean, he wasn't a running back, but we did have 139 and 136 against Old Dominion.
Yeah. Rusher's a rusher. I don't care if it's a running back or a quarterback. Hell, it can be a wide receiver. I don't care.
That's right. Yeah.
But anyway, the big thing to take home is this herd rushing attack could have a massively huge day. Now, one other thing I'm going to talk about, and then we can move on to the next key to victory. You know how Laburn has been ranked up there in the top 5, 6 in the country in rushing. Well, UAB running back Dwayne McBride is number 2 in the country right now. And he also played Georgia Southern earlier in the season, and he went for 220-ish yards. So a game like that from Laburn, just saying, pushes him right back up into that upper echelon of top 2, 3 rushers in the country. So go all in on the run and just see where you are. What do you got for number 2?
Win third down. Here's why. Marshall is first overall, as we've famously been talking about for weeks now.
Yep.
21.6% is all they're giving up on third down conversions. Georgia Southern, however, is 12th at converting 49.4% of the time. Nearly half of the time on third down, they are extending these drives. So if we can prevent them from extending these drives, obviously that gives us better field position and makes it harder for them to score points. And I'll get to that a little bit later. After the keys to victory, just a couple of follow-ups. So how do we win third down? One is during first and second down, don't allow them to get a first and make them have a third and long. It forces them to throw, and then they have to pick up those chunk plays. So we need to get get in on these early downs and force the third downs to make it to where they're not 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I looked at that and I saw that overall ranking and it was great. And then I want to bring back one of the stats that I said earlier from this offense in their last two. That third down conversion rate has really struggled. So that's one of the areas that they're trending downward in a bad way, like a nosedive. You're going from 50% of the time to currently they're 6 of 26 in their last two games. 23%. That does not bode well for a Marshall, playing against a Marshall defense that has been good. Again, 10 games through the season, you've earned that ranking. This is not an outlier early in the season. This is a good on bad situation currently. Now, 50%, yeah, if they get back to that, there'll be a great key for them. But currently, that's one that plays in the Herd's hand. My number two key to victory is Marshall just needs to play sound pass defense against this team. And we need to couple that playing assignment football and sound pass defense by tackling, not just hitting. We've seen several times throughout the season where we'll go in for a big hit and a guy just bounces off and then gets an extra 7, 8, 9, maybe more yards after the catch. So fundamentally sound pass defense is what you're going to have to execute against a team that averages passing the ball 46, 47 times per game. You can't allow them to rack those yaks. It's got to be get what you can get and you're going down, or such smothering coverages like you're saying you're playing behind the sticks once third down rolls around. What do you got for number three?
Get to Van Treese. You have to. You mentioned he's only been sacked 4 times. Overall, they've only given up 5 sacks.
Yeah.
And that's 5 sacks, 10 games in on the year. That's good for second in the country. Oregon has 2, I think, which blew me away
Wow.
as well. Yeah. They have 6 games of giving up no sacks during their 6-game performance of that, 4 and 2. 3 games of giving up 1 sack, and they're 1 and 2 if they give up 1 sack. And the last game, they gave up 2 against Louisiana, and obviously they lost that game. So I'm not saying causation is correlation and correlation is causation and that sort of thing, but we're going to have to get to
Yeah.
Van Treese. I mean, the guy is putting up 3,300 yards so far on the season, has only been sacked 4 times. We've got to get back there and get him. But again, with trends, 3 of those 5 sacks have come in the last 2 games. So let's double that. Let's throw up another 2. Let's throw up a 3. Let's do what we can to give our boys that much better field position and make them have to throw for those third downs and everything because we're getting a sack, or get them on third down, come up with a sack. So that's my other key to victory. We have got to have Owen Porter and crew get back there to Kyle Van Treese.
See, maybe we're it's late in the season, guys get dinged up. Maybe we're seeing a point right now where Georgia Southern's a little dinged up on the offensive line. I don't know that they are. I don't follow their team that closely, but to have such a stellar sacks allowed total, and then have that trend, almost 50% of those have come in the last 2 games. Maybe something's not right.
It's been more than
Oh,
50%.
okay.
3 out of their
Three.
5.
Okay,
3
3
out
of
of
5.
5 have been, yeah. So and 2 were in the last game.
That's what it was. 2 in the last. I just
Yeah.
heard 2, but
Yeah.
yeah. So also, how many of these pass rushing defenses that get to the quarterback that create the type of havoc that Marshall creates has this team faced? Probably very few. We've got a lot of guys that can get to the quarterback from several positions, many positions, and Van Treese's numbers let you know that when he does throw the ball up, it comes in spurts, and we're just that type of defense that'll come down with him. We saw it last week against Chase Bryce. He had a phenomenal touchdown to interception ratio, and we went up and stole one in the end zone. So those are the type of plays that are difference makers.
Here's the little bit that I've seen from them is they get rid of the ball quick, and that's going to help an offensive line quite a bit when you're getting rid of it before anyone has a chance to get back there.
Yeah.
So again, we'll have to disrupt that. I have full confidence and faith in Lance Guidry and his crew that we will do that.
Yeah, it is quite apparent that if Van Treese is given time, he will stand back there and pick you apart.
Yeah.
I mean, the receiver numbers that we just talked about echo that. Four guys that do a lot of damage. So you've got to get to him. You got to get him off his spot, get him moving, get him making some bad decisions, rushed decisions, whatever you got to do. Number 4, this is one, like I said, that we can both bounce off of.
You
I
still
just,
got 3. You still got your number
Oh,
3.
yeah, number 3. Marshall needs another fast start, just like we saw against Appalachian State. I don't think you want to try to play from behind against a team like Georgia Southern that can pass the ball so effectively. If you let them go out to a 10-point lead, 14-point lead, and they can just set back and do what they want to do, I'm not sure we want to get in that game. The most I've watched of Georgia Southern this year was in that shootout against James Madison. And boy, they can sling it. And we know that James Madison's defense was pretty good. And I'm not sure that we want to get in that type of game. I don't think we're built to be in that type of game. We want to do what we do, which is run the football and pass when we kind of have to or want to, but we're built to run. We know that by now. So we need that fast start. We need that opening drive touchdown. We need opening. I'll take an opening drive field goal, something just to get points on the board first and play from ahead. Now, my number 4 key to victory, this is what we can both kind of talk about, and you can interpret it the way you want. I wrote down one word, and that word is grind. I think Marshall needs to grind this one away. And if that's on the ground, shortening the game, keeping Van Treese standing on the sidelines, he can't pass on you if he's watching you run up and down the field. Grind in the pass rush game, grind in the tackling game. Whatever you got to do, just grind until this one's over and you look up at the scoreboard. So how do you interpret that? How do you think that? What do you get when I say grind?
Well, I also look at do what we have to do. We might not be playing perfect football, but we have to grind it out. We may be in a situation where it's just not there throwing it, but we still have to be able to throw the ball. You grind and do what you do. You pick up yards as you can. We may have labor and having to grind it out because he has a dinged up shoulder. He's got a lot of carries and mileage on him this year. I think that he's perfectly capable of doing it, but a dinged up shoulder is a dinged up shoulder. So maybe he has to grind it out. Maybe we have to get our yards where we can, and that's from Cam turning something bad into something positive with these wheels. Whatever it is, we 100%, yes, we'll have to grind this out. And I think that'll come into play when I go to my score prediction a little bit later.
Yep, I see this one as just an old school hard nosed game, right? They might finesse you a little bit because the passing game is always a sexier thing than a run game. But this is what Marshall's built to do. They're a bad rush defense team. There's no denying it. And we are a good rushing team. There's no denying it. So you got to do what you got to do. This could be a game where Marshall's plus 10 in the time of possession at the end of the game. You never know. We're just built different right now. And one last aside. The Broyles Award nominations, or not nominations, a watch list or what semifinal, whatever you want to call it, came out, and Lance Guidry was not included on that list, and it's egregious because this defense has proven to be one of the finest in the country, not just the Sun Belt, but conversely, Georgia Southern offensive coordinator Brian Ellis, who some folks may remember used to be at Western Kentucky, is on that list. So you don't think there's a little bit of probably not public motivation, but I know he wants to go in there and just have his defense wreck this pass offense of Georgia Southern. Let's take it to some matchups and your ThunderCast player of the week.
All right, so I'm going to rattle off a couple. Then if you have some, I'll let you do it.
Nope, I'll play off what you got.
All right, so something to watch for. Marshall is 8th in not allowing first downs. Georgia Southern is 9th in getting first downs. I think a lot of that comes from, 49.4% on converting third downs. That's going to help you pick up a lot of first downs that other teams aren't. So that's obviously going to put you up there, but that's something to watch. That's one of your keys or what do you call it? Not triggers.
The game within the game.
No, when you talk about time of possession and first downs and that sort of thing, it's every recap you talk about
Oh, you're the
in
indicators.
indicators. I just couldn't think of the word, but that's something that will be good to revisit because they're really good at it. We're really good at stopping it. Georgia Southern is 17th in total offense. You talked about them being fifth in passing. Obviously, that's going to pull them up there in total offense. 474.7 yards per game. Marshall is ninth in total defense with 276.4 allowed only. So, again, strength versus strength. What's going to give? I like our chances on our defense, especially the way they've been trending and the way we've been trending. In the red zone, Georgia Southern offense is 39th, and they're converting at 87.8% of the time, 36 of 41 on the year. 13 of those scores have been via run, 12 via pass, 11 via field goal. Marshall D, however, is 24th in red zone defense, and they're only allowing 78.3% scores, 18 out of 23, 6 on the ground, 5 in the air, 7 in field goals. Let's flip that, talk about red zone Marshall offense. We have come up these last two games to 125 out of 131. Now, we've talked famously about 3 different fumbles within
Yep.
inside the 5 and 3 blocked kicks, all that
Yep.
came within there. So there's 6 of these. So keep in mind, obviously those plays did happen, but it wasn't just that we came down there and we couldn't pass it in or something like that. It was things that hopefully we can correct is hold on to the ball and don't kick it so low or, whatever. Um where they're at on that is 71.8% of the time, 28 out of 39. So obviously those 6, if they could have converted those, would have been 34 out of 39, looking much better. 12 have been rushing, 7 have been passing, and 9 in field goals. Georgia Southern defense, we've talked about how porous their defense is. They get stingy when it comes down to the red zone. They are 11th in the nation, only allowing 73.9% scores once people are in the red zone against them, 34 out of 46. 18 touchdowns on the ground, 6 through the air, and 10 field goals. Now, they are 11th in the percentage, but listen to that. They have given up 34 scores in the red zone. Marshall is 24th at 78.3, and they've only given up 18 scores. So I don't care about the percentage. If they're allowing us in the red zone 8 times during this game, I like our odds. You
I
know,
like our chances. Yeah.
that that's where these things don't always tell the whole truth
So
until
so
you
wait a
start.
minute. Help me. Did I hear you correctly? Right. I just want to make sure I got the numbers right. You
All
said
right.
18 rushing touchdowns allowed by Georgia Southern
In the red zone.
in the red zone. Right.
Yes.
And Marshall has allowed how many total scores?
18.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So they've allowed as many on the ground as we've allowed all season.
Yes.
I like our chances.
Not just touchdowns, 18 scores, including field goals and touchdowns. We've allowed
Well, how would?
18.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
allowed
You mean us?
18.
You mean us? Yeah.
Yes, they have scored 8 or had 18 rushing touchdowns in the
Yeah.
red zone against them.
Yeah.
We have allowed 18
Total
scores.
scores.
Yes.
Total
That that's
scores.
what I'm talking about is yeah, they're better than us on the percentage,
Yeah.
but they're allowing people to get in the red zone. That just tells you they've got a porous defense
Yeah.
that you can pick up a lot of yards against them.
I like our chances. I like our
I
chances.
I do too. I'm going to finish it off with scoring.
Okay.
Georgia Southern offense, even though they have trended down last 2 games, 34.3 points per game on the season. Marshall's defense only giving up 16.1. Again, strength versus strength. Scoring for Marshall, 23.9. Georgia Southern's defense, 31.7.
Yeah.
So let's flip those and do Georgia Southern and Marshall offense and defense. Georgia Southern's average score then would be 34.3 to 31.7. Marshall's average score would be 23.9 to 16.1.
I'll take it.
I will
And I,
too.
and I mentioned earlier in their last two, you can bump those numbers down offensively to 24 points per game for that Georgia Southern offense and
Mm-hmm.
37 points allowed for that Georgia Southern defense. So,
Yep.
two teams currently right now in a lot of major categories trending in opposite directions.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall's finding its way a little bit, and Georgia Southern's all of a sudden starting to struggle with some of the things that have been strengths for them all season long. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things that you can keep an eye on. And when you go back and look at it all over again, you say, yep, that was what I thought. Yep, that might be that. So interesting take on this game, but still, I still think that despite all of these trends, this is still a very winnable or losable game, especially if
Yeah.
Marshall turns the ball over, quite a bit. We didn't even talk about what the score is. You said that we are favored in this game. Yeah, Marshall's a 4.5-point favorite. So Georgia Southern's a home dog, but the power index is a coin flip. Essentially, you're talking about 51.9% chance to win for the Herd versus 48.1% chance for Georgia Southern. So it's kind of neck and neck there a little bit, but I like our chances in some of those major categories. Who do you have for your ThunderCast player of the week?
Corey Gamage.
Ooh,
I
nice.
see him having a breakout game. Their defensive backs have a lot of pass deflections. Um, but I foresee him continuing this trend that he's had of a connection with Cam Fancher. They're throwing the ball over the middle. Well, he's not just picking up 7 on these slants. He's getting it and then taking it for another 20.
Yeah.
I foresee him being a problem for them. Finally, we get some more jump balls maybe in the end zone. Again, getting down into the red zone. Maybe he becomes our target down there. I just see him finally going off. Not that he hasn't had a good season, especially considering the passing problems we've had early on, but I foresee him just absolutely going off this game. Uh, Even though they give up more on the ground, I foresee us maybe that is the catalyst that we're torching them on the ground, slip in a little play action, which, by the way, everyone that's been clamoring for it, we did it quite a bit in that App State game. And it led to some good plays over the middle.
Yeah.
So I see Gamage.
It's a good pick. We talked about that earlier, that this holistic worry, this team worry of the run game that's coming into town could open up some of those plays. And they were there last week. We talked about it.
Yep.
Cam just missed a few. He missed EJ Horton a couple of times, Montgomery a couple of times, for those plays that were going to be fairly good gainers just if the ball's caught, not to mention all the green that's in front of you after that. So if you connect on one or two of those, that plays that are already there, this could be a big day for
And
Cam, both on the ground and through the air.
a couple of those too were not on Cam. Hit him right in the hands.
Yeah,
And
yeah. But there were some over, like one particularly that stands out to my mind. He had EJ wide open,
just
essentially.
overthrew him a little high.
Just overshot him just a little bit, and that's okay. That's okay. I like that pick, but I just can't go away from the fact that this Georgia Southern run defense is so porous and these herd runners are so dangerous. So I'm copping out a tad because I think it could be such a huge day. And I'm picking all of the herd runners: Cam, Ethan, AJ, Kalen, anybody that gets a carry could bust one. Even Montgomery, if we run some sort of wildcat thing, or even if it's one of those where we bring back the bubble screen here and there and you catch a block or two and these guys are gone, So I can't not pick the herd runners, and I can't just pick one because several could have a huge day. What do you like for a score prediction in this one?
34-21 Herd.
All right. You like the Herd to get over that 30-point plateau. Finally.
Yep.
I still can't get there, and I'm not mad. I'm not, trying to take anything away from them, but until we get there, I'm just keeping it right under. I like the Herd to hold that 28-point plateau again, and limit Georgia Southern to 17. I think they'll get a few big plays put on them, and maybe turn the ball over once it sets up a short field, just like we've been seeing other teams feast. That's how they're getting their points in those short field positions. But I like Marshall to take care of business, go down, get that 7th win, ensure a bowl game, and cruise into senior day with Georgia State coming to town. Currently, since Coastal's won the Sun Belt East already, really the only place we can gain ground is over Georgia State. So let's take care of this one, and then we can look forward to another one. If you got any final words on this game, let's have it. Otherwise, we've got a lot of cool info to talk about around the herd, so let's get to it.
Yeah, let's start out with men's basketball, and we are filming very late on Thursday night. So Marshall played tonight. We'll get to that in a minute. But since we have recorded last with an around the herd, Marshall has played 3 games already. They started off with a loss to Queens on November the 8th in a final seconds 83-82 heartbreaker. I have to say, a lot of people online, again, we've talked about the fans having knee-jerk reactions, or this is the worst thing that will ever happen, and I'll never go to another game. Worst loss in history. This is a very good Queens team. I watched every second of the game. Yes, this was their first Division One game, but they won 30 games last year in Division Two. They will probably make a lot of noise and possibly, if they're allowed to, win the Atlantic Sun Conference in their first year. They had a boatload of 5th-year seniors. They had been playing together for years, and we had 3 players that were four, basically playing together for the first time. We only played 7 people in that game, by the way, 4 of which, besides Wyatt Fricks having garbage time in 2 games because he blew out his knee last year, we were playing Kerfman as a starter, Hanlogton as a starter, both newcomers, and then Jacob Connor and Wyatt Fricks coming in off the bench. 4 of our 7 were playing basically for the first time for the herd. It was a packed, intimate, I say. They had like 2,500.
That's what I was thinking. 2,500.
2,500 is all they could fit in there. I think that they had like 16 to 1,800 were in there, but it was a loud atmosphere. They played extremely well. These guys know how to win. How long have we talked about programs needing to learn how to win?
Yep.
They already know how to win. They did it 30 some times last year. So we lost. We kind of melted down the stretch. We were up at one point 11 points. I think we were up 8 or 10 in the last 4 minutes, and they came back. They hit some threes. They called timeout. They said, we're going to lose or win this game. They took the final shot. They knew exactly who they were going to give it to. Kenny Dye, who could probably start for a lot of people across the country. So anyway, long story short, we had some really good things to look forward to in that loss, even with Connor, Fricks, Hanlogton, and those 3 playing as freshmen, what they brought to the table. Moving on to their next 2 games, they routed Tennessee Tech at home on Monday the 14th, 91-65. And they blew out Miami tonight, 95-69, and they could have put up 110-115, but they had 90 points, I think, with 6 to 7 minutes left, and they just kind of shut her down a little bit. Fricks, Connor, they have a lot of height and length when they're coming in. They are athletic. We have increased our athleticism, our team speed. Our defense and rebounding is better. Hanlogton has not been a force on offense. He didn't take a shot against Queens, by the way. He didn't even have a tip in. But he's banging on the boards. He's crashing on the boards. He's contesting inside in the paint. And I tell you what, if no one's watched, this 7', 7'1" guy is diving all over the floor for loose balls. And that's something that you want to see. One of the things that I've noticed, especially with our bigs over the last maybe even 6 years in a D'Antoni system, is if you are a freshman big, they have had someone else come in for the tip and maybe the first 2 to 3 minutes of the game, and then they bring someone in. Logton has been starting, and you've seen in the D'Antoni system that later on, especially in the conference season, these guys are starting to get more playing time out of the gate. These guys are getting playing time. So that's just from what I've seen so far. If we have a good rebounding night and a good shooting night, it looks like nobody in the conference will be able to keep up with us. Have an off shooting night and we don't get the boards like we should, we can lose. But so far, 3 games in, playing a heavy rotation of freshmen and first year players for the Herd, we've already shown some good signs of what I'd like to see.
Yeah, 2-1 on the season. Of course, they could be 3-0, but you talked about a little bit of a meltdown there in the opener. And just to provide some context for this one tonight, the starting five, of course, as we had figured it would be, was Obina and Henlogden, Kerfman, Taylor, and Kinsey. And if you go and look at the stat lines for this game, Obina only tallied 10 minutes. And then Connor has 28 minutes in the game. And Wyatt Fricks has another 18 minutes as well. And you mentioned Henlogden not really being an offensive force in this game against Miami, accounted for a total of 1 point, but 12 rebounds. So, and that's what we need. You need a guy to go, like we said in that preview, to go clean the boards up and kick it out for that second and third opportunity, to where most of the time our sharpshooters are going to hit that most of the time. Kerfman, Taylor, and Kinsey, all big nights tonight. Kerfman 16 points, Andy Taylor 26 points, and Kinsey 14. The game before last, who was that again? The middle game?
Tennessee Tech.
Tennessee Tech. That's right. Andy Taylor crosses the 1,000 point mark for his Herd career tonight. Tavion Kinsey crosses the 2,000 point plateau. So there's some guys that are starting to hit those cool milestones, and it's early in the season. I mean, it's early in the season. You might see some more of these milestones drop by the end of this season. So there's a lot to be excited about. It's a shame that we had to squeeze in basically 3 games worth of roundup in this one segment, because normally we'll be able to dedicate the same amount of time to one game, and we can talk about the box score a little bit better. So but still, off to a good start. When's the next one?
It's Saturday.
Okay.
Coppin State on the 19th.
Okay.
Here's where I'm worried about right now. I'm not worried about a 1-point loss to Queens. A lot of people are, because they played D2 last year. I'm worried about Obina right now. In 3 games, has put up 6, 4, and 2 points for a total of 12 points on the season, 4 points per game. He just seems like the other guys, as they have come in, Fricks and Connor, are just kind of like passing him up. I know that those guys have passed some people up that got a lot of playing time last year, but when they are on the court, everyone seems to be gelling right now except for Obina. And I don't think that is due to talent. I just think that he needs to get himself involved more. Maybe he just needs to go crash the boards, get some putbacks, get involved that way, become a force on defense. Because, like I said, Logton has become that force, and he's definitely not, putting up a lot of shots either. So it seems to be perimeter dominated right now, and driving to the basket and fast break points and things like that. But I really hope Obina gets involved, crashes the boards, like I say, get some putbacks, dunks, just get going like we know that he can. He showed up.
Could you imagine the Herd having the luxury of just having 2 guys down there that are banging the bodies out of the way, trying to clean up all those missed shots, just to kick it back out to 3 more sharpshooters, when Marshall's going 5 deep currently, with maybe a little bit more as the season progresses with quality shooting? What a luxury to have. I think Obina will find his way and how he fits into this team as this team continues to evolve and gel.
Moving on, we're going to keep it on the court with women's basketball. They put up an impressive showing at Purdue, and then Purdue just kind of pulled away late. They lost 73-61, and that was back on November the 10th. And then they just absolutely beat the brakes off of West Virginia Wesleyan. 72-39 after one quarter. Remember, women's basketball plays four quarters, not
Yep.
two halves like men's. After first quarter, it was 30-9. And I watched that game as well. And it could have been, might as well been 200-9. You know, um, they go to play next multi-team event in Savannah, Georgia. That'll be next week. It'll be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. On Monday, they're playing UT Martin at 7 p.m. Purdue Fort Wayne at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday they finish up that event at 7 p.m. playing Norfolk State. Um, One of the things that I really like to see, and we are still going to do our preview now that we've gotten to watch two games, and we'll probably fit that in next week as our schedule has been planned. These guys are gals. I'm sorry, I say guys for everything. These gals are driving to the basket and they're hitting the boards. And for a group of huge turnover, bringing in a lot of new signees and a lot via the transfer portal, they seem to already be playing on the same page. And that's something that I like to see. Yes, this was West Virginia Wesleyan, but they just played Purdue at Purdue and they had Purdue going during that game. Um, let's see here on the game cast. As late as I can't get it to do it. They were pretty much tied in the fourth quarter, and Purdue pulled away. I thought it was late in the third, but it was in the Purdue was up at 7:45 left in the game. They were only up 60-57 after hitting a layup. So it was 58-57 right there in the fourth quarter. Purdue just kind of pulled away down the stretch. And again, we're talking about a Big Ten team versus at home versus a bunch of people playing together for the first time. So I think that the women's team can make a good run this year. They brought in Abby Beeman as point guard. She her forte is driving to the basket, kicking the ball out, driving to score. I like the ball movement that we've had around the perimeter and down low. I like us crashing the boards, and we have been shooting the absolute lights out of it. So been a really good thing to see early in the season.
Yeah, let me touch on some of the statistics from this West Virginia Wesleyan win just the other day, the home opener, which, by the way, we again are giving tickets away to every home Marshall men's and women's basketball game. But let's talk about some stats here. Um, excuse me. Wow, that one snuck up on me real quick. In that one against West Virginia Wesleyan, you have three big performers that stand out, right? Abby Beeman, which you mentioned, she scores 15 points in 26 minutes to lead the team in minutes played and points in that one. Also, Rashala Scott, 10 points in just 16 minutes, and Tara Harness, 14 points in 20 minutes. In that game, this lady, Herd basketball team was over 40% shooting from the field and 33% shooting from 3-point range. Now, I know that's probably not how they're going to, what they're hanging their hat on right now. As you say, they like to drive and kick out, but those are good numbers for a team that's still trying to find its way. A lot of turnover, you mentioned, not just from the roster, but also from,
Yeah.
Coach Tony Kemper's staff. This is a
Mm-hmm.
lot of new. We've talked about it a lot. So for them to be productive this early, hanging with a Big Ten team right there in it to the end, you've got to be happy at the trajectory, and they could make some real noise. We also talked about how the ladies' schedule is a lot more favorable than the men's schedule in the Sun Belt Conference slate. So don't be surprised if this women's basketball team for the Herd makes some legit noise, makes a run in that Sun Belt Conference. But early on here in the early going, it's pretty exciting. There's some new air in the cam from the women's basketball program, and I'm kind of here for it.
Same, man. Same. Can't wait to get over and see him. Hadn't been able to, couldn't get over there the other day. And again, like you mentioned, we are giving away tickets, and it's an exciting time to go watch men's basketball, women's basketball. Let's go support them in November and December, and then after the new year, we're going to be doing the same.
Yeah. Before you go to another sport, let me make a note about what these tickets are, right? Like our men's tickets, they have um, reserve seats, right? So you're going to the same place every time. Women's, we just bought season tickets and it's general admission. So if you win the tickets, you can sit as close to the court as you want to, or you can sit as far away from the court as you want to. So just be aware of that. If you win tickets to a women's game, man, you could show up and be sitting basically courtside. I mean, essentially. So I guarantee you, as this season goes along, more and more folks will be turning out to those games, and you will have to get there earlier and earlier to get the type of seat that you want. So if you win those tickets from us, make sure you get there early and get yourself a good seat, because that's kind of a cool setup. And we're really glad to support that program in the first season that they've offered tickets, at least season tickets, in a while that I can think of, maybe ever.
Yeah.
And we want to see some butts in the seats.
All right, so volleyball, they swept Arkansas State 3-2 and 3-1 on Thursday and Friday, right before the App State football game weekend. That finished up their regular season. They beat Louisiana Monroe in the first round. That was yesterday of the Sun Belt Conference tournament. They won in 5 sets, 3-2. Tonight they put up a really good effort. I watched that as part of 3 events going on at
Same.
the same time. They lost to South Alabama 3-1 in the second round. So their season comes to an end, but a lot to build off of, a lot to be proud of. Coach Ari and their team. They also seem to me like we latched on to softball about how fun they seem to be having and everything. These ladies seem to be having a lot of fun on the court as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the recap of the last episode, if folks didn't listen to it yet, Lydia Montag's second team All Sun Belt Conference. So some individual awards also coming out of that program. And we mentioned about one of your 5 things was signings galore. And if
Mm-hmm.
you go to that Herd Volleyball Twitter account, you can see that they made some noise in the recruiting game as well.
Yeah.
There's a definite effort to take this program to a different level than they're on now. And there's a lot to be excited about. So when the next season rolls around, as we hope to evolve this show, we hope to be able to get in touch with some folks on that roster or that coaching staff and give us some more insight to help you get more excited about that team as the 2023 season rolls around.
And you can't beat the theme nights that they have. I mean,
You're right. 80s night the other night.
yeah, it's a free ticket, man. It's here, it's inside the cam. You just go in, sit where you want, and enjoy a really cool program.
Yep.
All right, cross country. They had the NCAA Mid Atlantic Regionals, and those were Saturday during the App State contest. The women finished 13th and the men finished 15th. First time in school history that both teams finished top 15 in the regionals. I know you're going to say no, but Abby Herring
Get
made
out.
made made all region. She again paced the women and made all region. We can't say enough about Parkersburg and West Virginia's own Abby Herring.
Yep. I think actually right before that that meet that Caleb finished up a second, maybe it was 1,000-yard run this time.
Why not?
Probably in about 16 hours. I mean, because if we're gonna set the pace with 12 hours over 100 miles, you could probably do 1,000 in 16 hours. But no, seriously though, you can tell that this program, both of these programs, and the return, if you'll recall, of a men's track and field team
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of the right time for all that.
Yeah.
We're hitting some all-time highs. We've talked about never before in program history has this occurred and has that occurred. So this is a great time to get involved and pay attention to what's going on with Herd Cross Country, men's and women's, and the track and field is going to be a lot of fun to talk about in the spring. I just can't say enough about what Coach Caleb Bowen's doing, and it shows. And Abby, I mean, can we even do a ThunderCast anymore without talking about Abby Beeman, Abby Herring? I
Yeah.
mean, she's an all-timer, man, and if she's listening, we'd like to have you on the show to talk about how awesome you are, because we've kind of fanned out over the course of the last, how many months have we been doing this now? 8 months, 9 months, whatever it is.
Not even 8 months yet,
Yeah,
believe it or
I mean,
not.
we've just become huge fans of what she's been able to accomplish in the Kelly Green and White. It's
She's
pretty
just going to
amazing.
have to slow down when she's on the show because we don't run. We don't run. Swimming and diving is competing at the Purdue Invite, and that is Wednesday through Friday. So they're already 2 days into that. We do not have results yet. We will have those for our next show. We'll go over that. And I think that might be it. Maybe they have one more for the before they go over into January, but we'll see. And finally, men's soccer. They made the NCAA tournament, as we mentioned on yesterday's show, for the fourth consecutive year. They played tonight and they beat Elon in the first round, 1-0. They move on to face number 4 Virginia in the second round, and that is Sunday, November the 20th at 1 p.m. And it's
Yeah,
at Virginia and Charlottesville.
I was watching that game tonight, and it was pretty exciting. That Elon team was pretty smothering with the defense,
Yep,
man. It was something else. It got a little chippy a couple times. I thought I
it
might
did.
see a little bit of a brawl bust out in that
Yeah,
game. Emotions were running high. It was um it was pretty cool. And wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? I watched the game all the way up until the very end of the first half, and I had to go take care of something for my son. And as soon as I walked out of the room, we score a goal. And I come back and I hear it's halftime, 1-0. And of course, this fear goes through my body because I'm thinking, crap, are we down 1-0?
a
And
minute a
so
minute and a half left in the first half. Mohamed Saidu came in and got a goal off I think it was a header
I
that
think
he
it was
got.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just kind of set the pace as the announcers were saying, Marshall's up. Now they just need to hold that. They're in the driver's seat, and they did just that. It looked like they had a couple more chances to increase their lead and everything. But hey, a win is a win. Let's move on to Virginia on Sunday. I think that there's probably going to be a decent contingent of people driving over there. It's less than 5 hours away. Plus, we have a lot of people in the Virginia area. So, hope to see, because I heard on the broadcast, we are Marshall. I don't know if you picked up on that when you were hearing, because we had 3 games going on. I don't know what you had the audio going on, but there was an audible "We Are Marshall" chant down there at Elon. So I'd like to hear a lot more of that when I'm watching on Sunday, if I don't get to drive over. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm hoping that I might be able to go, but we'll see.
We'll see. One house cleaning note: as we were talking about soccer, I went back and looked. Swim and Dive has one more meet in December, Friday, December 16th at Florida International, by the way.
Gotcha.
But that's the only thing. And then
Okay.
we'll move on to mid-January, where we'll pick up the winter season and the spring season with with a meet up at Ohio U. Um, dude, I kind of dig this format. This is pretty cool. I don't know that I want to do it every week, but it's pretty cool for this week since it was since I was traveling back and we kind of got a late start, but very informative. I'm so unbelievably proud of our men's soccer team for taking it on the road, and probably felt they were slighted a little bit, like they should have been hosting the game. So good for them for not sulking and pouting and just going up to Elon and taking care of business. Congratulations once again to Herd Volleyball for fighting hard at the end of the year and making some positive moves to get some strides going in the right direction. And one heck of a recruiting class. I'm looking forward to that one next season as well. Basketball season is upon us, and as both of our teams continue to form that chemistry, we could be pretty dangerous in both sports, men's and women's. So can't wait to continue talking about them. Russ, if you got nothing else, let's take it out of here.
Very briefly, I just want to highlight our sponsors, as
Sure.
we love those guys. Let's start off with 304carwreck.com. Before we even shot our first show, April the 1st, before we recorded the first minute, they were on board to be our show sponsor. We have a commercial for them every single week that we have it, or like this 2 times a week.
Yep.
But we cannot highlight them enough, guys. Everyone here knows someone that has either been in a car wreck themselves or knows someone that's been in a car wreck. If you find yourself in an unfortunate situation where you're hurt in a wreck, please do not try to deal with the insurance agencies alone. It is their job to try to give you the lowest possible return. See our friends at 304carwreck.com, follow them on Facebook, and let them do the work for you and get you what you deserve. Secondly, how awesome is Ignite Link? I mean, we're doing ThunderCast Live. They bought 3 separate games worth of tickets on football, and we gave them away for them. They love martial sports just as much as anybody that we've been around, and they've been here with us for a long time and have allowed us to do a lot of cool things too. So, again, if you have any IT management needs, go see Jed, Josh, and the whole crew at Ignite Link. Follow them on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, and give them a call if you need anything.
Yeah, our sponsors take really good care of us, which in turn allow us to take really good care of herd fans and follow martial athletics as closely as we can. And we really hope to do that in a bigger way as we really start to look towards the calendar turning to 2023. It'll be a new year, and we're hoping to not only bring more of the same that folks have come to expect from us, but we want to crank it up another notch. So if you're a local business owner and you think, hey, man, I could really get behind the ThunderCast, you got to get in contact with us. We can make something work for you. If you want to sponsor a segment, we'd love to have you come aboard and be a part of the ThunderCast family and machine. And that just means we can do more great things for not only herd fans, martial athletics, and our athletes, but we can help you get your business out there. We can help you get in touch with herd fans, other herd fans, just local folks that may be in need of your services or might want to buy your goods. So please get in touch with us. We'd love to get something working with you. But until next time, Russ, take us the heck out of here.
Yeah, whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at ThunderCast Live at a tailgate, or whether you see us at home watching 3 games at one time on multiple screens, because we're in the Sun Belt, baby, and it's got ESPN Plus for everything. No matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week. Later.